All right, we're now joined by our resident analyst, Clive Ramathibela-Smith of Inkunzi Investments, to help us unpack this. Thank you, as always, for joining us here, Clive. Now, South Africa invested in more projects in the rest of Africa than any other country in 2013. This is a good thing, right?
I suppose you can say it's a good thing, most especially because the fact that you are doing foreign direct investment in your own continent, that shows the commitment and the latitude at which people are willing to put money into their home continent. So that's very, very important. What concerns me, however, Florence, is if this money has been going out to the rest of the African continent, what have we done locally to make sure that even our local market benefit from that foreign direct investments? So what you normally find is that companies that invest overseas or over other countries, you would want to find out what their social responsibility is based on the country of origin in which they come from. And if you don't see anything happening local on the local market, then you start having concerns that they would actually be prepared to expand and go and search for more revenues outside instead of actually structurally preparing the local market for what they're doing as benefiting from their own business
Do you feel
side.
that the South African local market isn't benefiting?
No, it's not because we can talk about three different companies right now that are South African based that have expanded throughout the rest of Africa. You can talk about Tiger Brands, you can talk about MTN, and you can talk about also if you want to go deep into it as well and look at the African or rather the paper market, which you're talking about Monty and the likes. So you're thinking that these guys would have done a lot more locally. Before they actually expand. But Tiger Brands is a big company. What sort of structural social responsible investing have they done locally before they actually expand? MTN, you know about Putu Manati, which is these BEE shares, and you're hoping that these shares would be owned majority by black people. But when you look at the majority of black people that own these shares, yes, it's great. It's made a few millionaires out of them. But the bulk is still the same individuals that appear on every other frontier of what is a black business. And this is a problem because you ask yourself, is this wealth being spread equally amongst the poor? No, it's not. It's a few individuals that have been able to benefit from it, and therefore they make up what we call the BEE structure and know they qualify to get those particular shares. And then when they send them out there to the African continent to invest, are they benefiting? Are these people benefiting? Yes, maybe the shareholding is benefiting, but it's a small flock of people that actually get the benefits of that investment.
And I mean, what opportunities are South African companies then seeing in the rest of the continent that perhaps then they aren't necessarily seeing in South Africa itself, which is why they're taking the business outside?
And I'm going to just correct myself there because it's the MTN Zakhele funds, the BE share side. But the important thing is that when you start expanding, it means that you've reached saturation, right? It means that you've reached your ultimate premium in the environment in which you are in. And so that's why you want to expand. And people must understand that. So if Clive's business in Soweto is so flooded, I don't see room now to expand, then I start moving out of Soweto and I go into Johannesburg, the greater Johannesburg. I go to Kempton Park, I go to the rest of the South African market, and then maybe I'll go provincial at the end of it. It's because the business is saturation. But if the business model and its integrity and its model and its basic requirement is to actually be penetrating different other alternatives of market within that sector, it means I haven't reached saturation. So why move out? Why expand when you can actually still do more? So the question is, am I getting out of the kitchen because the kitchen is getting too hot for me? Or am I getting out of the kitchen because I feel that the kitchen is not enough space for me to actually grow? And I can promise you now, most of these businesses go out there, not because they've saturated the kitchen, not because the kitchen is ready for them to go out, or they've expanded the kitchen, but because the kitchen is getting too hot, there's too much competition. And so they want to expand elsewhere in the African continent. Nothing bad with it, but have they done the right thing at the time when it is required for them to do it?
I think that was my next question. Should these companies then be getting flack from organizations like the Black Management Forum? Is it fair for them to be getting the amount of flack that they do get for going outside?
You know what the BMF is looking for? Yeah. It's looking for transparency. It's looking for transformation. It's looking to see how much these businesses have benefited black people in the South African context, and have they made rounds or grounds to make sure that these people are alleviated from their previously disadvantaged position.
Yeah.
The answer to that, Florence, unfortunately, is no, they haven't done enough. And we know that because you look at service delivery protests in South Africa, you look at competition rights within these businesses and what they do. Big business still controls what happens at the bottom. So what happens is when big business does something wrong, there's a slap on the wrist and that's it. Everybody forgets about it. But when small business does something wrong, it's actually difficult for small business to actually penetrate because big business makes it so difficult for it to actually penetrate. So the question is, what is it that they're supposed to be doing? Shouldn't they be investing a bit more in small to medium enterprises in South Africa? You know, your small and medium enterprises are the guys that actually create jobs, that sustain jobs, that make sure that the country's GDP is actually extended. Yeah. So before you can do that, you can't just go and now invest in Nigeria and make more millionaires there when South Africa is still having poverty problems. So the question is, what is more important to them? Is it a numbers game where we're talking about profit share, or is it about really going back and giving back to the communities which they promised they would when they started the business in the first place?
And just as we wrap up here, I mean, your predictions in terms of intra-Africa investment for the last quarter of 2014 and the first of 2015?
Yeah, I think that you're going to see more. You're going to see more businesses going overseas. We've seen SAB try as well. I mean, wherever they go, SAB, whatever market they penetrate, they take over. They bring the brands that are well known, and people start buying those brands. You can see that Woolworths tried the same structure in Nigeria. They pulled out early this year because they see it wasn't working. But it doesn't mean that it's all out and over. Now they've expanded to Australia. Now, was that a good thing to do? Do you go to Australia when Africa fails? What kind of mentality is that? Does that mean that the African continent is not good enough for you, where you started your own business? You know, you need to start asking those kind of questions. And the other thing that worries me about these other, like Target brands, for example, the branding power that they bring to those African countries, does it empower the people themselves, or is it about still importing things from Asia, from Europe, and selling it to the African market, whereas we can actually develop those things and produce them ourselves and sell it to our African people? That is a story that needs to be still told, and if we don't start writing it ourselves, Florence, it's going to be written by other countries, such as Russia, such as Brazil, such as China, before we can even start talking about ourselves.
All right, Clive, it's always interesting and always a pleasure having you here with us. Thank you very much. That's Clive Ramathibela-Smith of Inkonzi Investments.